Hey everyone, recently PFers have started spreading a lot more. I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but I think that there are necessarily bad things about it. But I totally get where people are coming from. Like, I think that the assumption is that there are very strong and competitive incentives to spread in debate. My challenge is I think my hypothesis, at least, is that these competitive incentives are over exaggerated. Specifically, my hypothesis is that I think it's actually possible to give the exact same speech content-wise without the speed of spreading. So I'm going to try to pick a random speech from PF videos that is pretty fast and give the same speech without dropping any content out of it. So hopefully no one, like the idea is that the conclusion will not be a worse speech that happens to be slower, but the same speech in terms of content, but hopefully meaningfully slower. The first step that I'm going to attempt is I want to make an entire like word for word transcript of this speech, um, which might be a challenge. I'll see. And then the second thing that I want to do is analyze the transcript, figure out really what arguments are being read in it. And then finally, I want to um, sort of rewrite the speech in my own words in hopefully a slower, like a more word efficient way, and also try to give the speech with slower delivery myself. So hopefully by the end of the video, I convince you that it's possible to give very good speeches without spreading, and still keep up with people who are spreading in terms of content of your speeches without resorting to it yourself. I think that if this is possible, it's preferable for a lot of reasons. My personal opinions are quite negative on spreading, but I'll admit some of that is because I didn't do a lot of spreading when I was debating. And part of it is also, I think that I have some auditory processing like things that make it difficult for me to process spreading. I think that this is like on a spectrum enough that a lot of people like have a difficult time processing spreading, even after a lot of practice. But it's difficult to say if this is really like a disability thing or if this is like a skill issue thing. I consider myself sort of like in that position of I don't really know if I'm just like bad, as in like I'm not skilled enough or I haven't put in enough work to practice spreading, and therefore that's why I can't comprehend it. Or two, if it's like there is some like challenge with my brain that makes it difficult for me to flow spreading. Or three, if maybe spreading is just inherently difficult for anyone to understand. I kind of suspect that it's a mix of all three of them, but I don't know what to do with that information, and it kind of just frustrates me. Um, it frustrates me that this is something that I think that people have to deal with in the activity nowadays. And I really do think it's somewhat exclusive. Like, no shame to anyone who's doing it. I think there are good reasons to be doing it in the current day of PF, or at least there seem to be good reasons. But I really hope that in this video I can show you that it's not something you necessarily need to engage with to keep up with PF nowadays, even if you want to be a technical debater. I think the odds might be stacked against me, given the norms in LD and policy, and I think the high amount of people who will probably look at this and say, like, no, spreading is fine or spreading is good. Um, but I hope I can make a bit of a difference in people's like calculations. So we'll see. I want to fight the good fight. Let's try to watch the speech and take the transcript together. I know that it is a pretty fast speech, so. I don't know if the transcript even possible. I might like um wimp out a little bit. Like you can see I have this on 0.75 times speed. Part of this is because I really want to actually like make sure I get every single word. So I'll be pausing and starting it a lot. If you want to skip forward to the end, that's fine. But I think that it might be interesting to watch my process here as well. So let's see.
Right now, they still couldn't see democracy.
Okay. What is the first thing?
Start it again. They still couldn't see democracy.
They sealed dependency. They sealed dependency. I haven't watched the rest of the round, so maybe I'm like lacking context, but what is this?
Okay, start it again. They still couldn't see democracy lower.
They seal dependency, they seal diplomacy. Let's try to watch it on one time speed. Maybe that's actually clearer.
Sorry, what? Okay, cool. Okay, is there it again? Yeah, we're good. They still couldn't see democracy.
Yeah, I don't know what those first three words are. I think the first word is they. They sealed diplomacy. They sealed dependency. They sealed something. Um, yeah, I don't like without a speech doc, I really don't know if this is something I can even follow. I really like I'm actually quite curious if anyone else has the same issue as me. Like please validate me if you do. Or like it's also very helpful for me to know if this is just me. Like if you can perfectly understand this, please like correct the errors in my document in the comments. That would be very helpful, I think educational for me to see. I know that there might be a speech doc out on the wiki for this, but I really want to resist looking at it. One, because I mean, I think there are a lot of reasons. Actually get into them at the end of the video. But I have a very strong belief that judges flowing off of speech docs is like very, very terrible for the activity. After all, like if even after I repeat the speech over and over again and change the like time controls on it and everything, if I still can't understand what you're saying, did you really say it? Um, maybe I don't know. Maybe this is like a quirk of like not having enough context in the round. I guess if everyone else in the round can understand it, like it's probably like a me problem. As much as I hate to admit that, but I don't know. Let's keep watching and see if this is actually an issue.
Okay, is there it again? Yeah, we're good. They still couldn't see democracy low right now, but there's authoritarianism isn't high right now.
Okay, that part I got. They say democracy is low, but that doesn't mean authoritarianism isn't high right now. This sentence is confusing to me though, because like democracy low would imply a high authoritarianism if they are like right, like authoritarianism seems contrary to democracy. So did he just misspeak maybe? Like they say democracy is high, but that doesn't mean authoritarianism isn't high. He did say democracy is low, right? Not isn't.
Okay, cool.
Let's see.
Okay, is there it again? Yeah, we're good. They still couldn't see democracy low right now, but there's authoritarianism.
Oh, maybe he's saying maybe this is they say something democracy is low right now. They say something democracy is low right now, but that doesn't mean authoritarianism is not. He did say is low though, right?
Okay, is there it again? Yeah,
Am
we're
I
good.
tripping?
They still couldn't see democracy low right now, but there's
Yeah, they say something.
authoritarianism.
Democracy is low right now.
Okay, is there it again? Yeah, we're good. They still couldn't see democracy low right now, but there's authoritarianism isn't high right now. We've
But but we've, let's see.
they can see the evidence that authority
They conceded, they conceded evidence that authoritarianism, I assume he's going to say is like rising
authoritarianism right now is increasing. They see U.S.
right now is increasing. They say the US
influence is permanently on the decline, but no,
influence is permanently on the decline. Okay, I can follow this now. Permanently on the decline, but no, Trump
Trump wants to go into the region right now to hedge against them
wants to go into the region to hedge against them. Hedge against who? And
and get geopolitical assets, but
get geopolitical assets. I guess he was trying to say geopolitical and assets at the same time and wound up saying geopolitical assets. I spelled geopolitic is not a word. Geopolitic, I guess, could be. So I'll leave that for now.
gives them a reason to go to the
Wait.
decline, but no, Trump wants to go into the region right now to hedge against them and get geopolitical assets, but the AF gives them a reason to go to
But the AF gives them a reason to? A reason to what? Wait, what? Trump wants to go into the region, I guess, right now, but the AF gives them a reason to? Didn't he just, I mean, who is them, I guess? the US? Because he said the US, I mean, reason to what? Oh gosh. I don't know if this is coherent as a standalone argument. This might be a judge philosophy thing, but I kind of feel like every speech should stand alone without like necessarily having the context from speeches before it. Um, like maybe if I flowed the constructive, I would totally understand what this means. But as a sentence, I don't think this is a coherent argument. Like the words put together, I think don't make an argument. Like certainly like uh this part does. I don't know if this combination of words makes sense. But I guess we will keep going.
Cohesion. Wanting that to go into the region right now to
Oh,
hatch
yeah,
in some and get geopolitical assets, but the ask is no reason to go to cohesion. Wanting
go to cohesion. Okay, I can follow that. Go to cohesion. And now he's going to give his first response. One.
at the top of their interest, make them read evidence that something wrong. Stay
At the top of their interp is this theory. Make them read evidence that something what? I didn't really catch that.
assets, but the ask is no reason to go to cohesion. Wanting at the top of their interest, make them read evidence that something wrong. Stay
Something will happen, I guess. Something will happen. But I don't know, Seeger. I don't know this person's name, but that's like not his fault.
assets, but the ask is no reason to go to cohesion. Wanting at the top of their interest, make them read evidence that something wrong. Stay for 2400 over the last 4 years. 93% of African Unions
Okay. In the last 4 years, 93% of African Union
decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly of
decisions have not been implemented. And then I think he says assembly. Let's see.
Stay for 2400 over the last 4 years.
Oh, February 24, I think. Seeger in February 24.
93% of African Union decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers.
It was the assembly. I didn't really catch the stuff in between meaningful powers, I think. Let's see. Can I catch the stuff in between? Can you catch the stuff in between?
Over the last 4 years, 93% of African Union decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers to any of the UAE organs.
What? The assembly, did he say entrenched? Did he say the assembly of something? Did he say what? What is the verb here?
93% of African Union decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers.
And what? Am I actually tripping? Hold on.
Over the last 4 years, 93% of African Union decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers.
I don't know if I can make out words here.
Over the last 4 years, 93% of African Union decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers.
What is he saying? Am I just like not hearing this correctly? The assembly is a Jewish to entrench meaningful powers. Like, wait,
2400
I'm slowing this down even more. I mean, like, I guess it's not slowed right now. I'm slowing this down.
For the last 4 years, 93% of African Union decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers.
Like, literally, this is not words, right? The assembly of Jushu with the Trid's meaningful powers. That's what he's saying, I think. Wait, hold on.
Decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers.
What? That's not words, right? Like, maybe I'm getting entrenched at the end. I can hear syllables. I don't think those syllables form a word to me.
Decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers.
Maybe it's an audio problem? I'm just gonna skip it, I guess.
Any of the UAE organs, the EU Commission cannot come up.
Wait, what was the last part? Hold on.
African Union decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers. Any of the UAE organs.
Wait, what did he say after? It sounded almost like he's saying if the UAE words. What is he saying?
4 years, 93% of African Union decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers. Any of the UAE organs.
What is he saying there? What is he saying? I'm actually gonna crash out.
4 years, 93% of African Union decisions have not been implemented. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers. Any of the UAE organs. The EU Commission cannot come up.
If the AU rules, I think. If the AU rules that. Okay.
commemoracy to combine with 80 roads, cut the
Wait.
evidence that something wrong. Stay for 2400 over the last 4 years. 93% of African Union decisions have not been handled. The Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers to any of the UAU organs. The EU Commission cannot commemoracy
If the maybe awards? Is it awards? I mean, rules makes more sense.
to combine with 80 roads, cut the cord there.
Something to to combine to comply. Something to comply with AU rules, right?
Assembly has received and transfer meaningful powers to any of the UAU organs. The EU Commission cannot commemoracy to combine with 80 roads.
So it was member states. Member states to comply with AU rules.
Cut the cord there. That means
Okay, cut the card there. I guess that's what I'm going for. That's what I'm going with for now. And you're just gonna say that means, right?
transfer meaningful powers to any of the UAU organs. The EU Commission cannot commemoracy to combine with 80 roads. Cut the cord there. That means even if they're at the top of their agenda, they can't actually solve anything because agendas don't get passed. But second.
Even if what? The top of their interp? They can't actually solve anything because the agenda, I think it's agendas don't get passed.
To combine with 80 roads, cut the cord there. That means even if they're at the top of their agenda, they can't actually.
Even if they what?
The EU Commission cannot
Even if they
commemoracy to
decide?
combine with 80 roads, cut the cord there. That means even if they're at the top of their agenda, they can't actually.
Even if they decide top of what? Even if I thought he said the top of their interp, but I don't think that's what even if they decide the top of something, they can't actually solve anything because agendas don't get passed.
solve anything because agendas don't get passed. But second, turn it because affirming.
Okay, I'm moving on. But second, turn it because affirming.
Enforce African Union power.
Enforce African Union power? And then he's reading a card. That's
that they can't actually solve anything because agendas don't get passed. But second, turn it because affirming enforce African Union power.
card. I couldn't hear the something nine. I don't know. 19 maybe? I mean, I assume card says. Okay.
Solve anything because agendas don't get passed. But second, turn it because affirming enforce African Union power. The EU has declined authority.
No, it was 2020. Some card 20 like Giovanni 2020 or something.
Agendas don't get passed. But second, turn it because affirming enforce African Union power. The EU has declined authority. However, the trend can be reversed if structural.
The AU like has enough authority, but the trend could be reversed. It doesn't make sense uniqueness wise. So he's probably saying the opposite, and I'm just not hearing it.
Enforce African Union power. The EU has declined authority. However, the trend could.
Hasn't got enough authority? Maybe. But the trend could be reversed.
Reversed if structural fragilities were just one systematic fragility.
Structural fragilities were just something fragilities.
The EU has declined authority. However, the trend could be reversed if structural fragilities were just.
If structural fragilities. If structural fragilities.
One systematic fragility is the most African states.
Were just what?
The EU has declined authority. However, the trend could be reversed if structural fragilities were just one systematic fragility is the most.
What?
The EU has declined authority. However, the trend could be reversed if structural fragilities were just one systematic fragility is the most African states opposing for instance.
What?
Authority. However, the trend could be reversed if structural fragilities were just one systematic fragility is the most African states.
What is he saying? Bro, I actually can't understand this. All right, we're gonna slow it down again.
The EU has declined authority. However, the trend could be reversed if structural fragilities were just one systematic fragility is the most.
If they were just what?
Authority. However, the trend could be reversed if structural fragilities were just one systematic fragility is the most.
We're just one once we're just one we're just bro, I don't my brain's I'm done.
authority. However, the trend could be reversed if structural fragilities were just one systematic fragility is the most effective
I think he's going on to a new sentence now. Fragility is
authority. However, the trend could be reversed if structural fragilities were just one systematic fragility is the most effective states of Brazilian for instead of international affairs. Just one systematic fragility is the most effective states of Brazilian for
fragility of most African states. Why is this so hard, bro?
instead of international affairs. But the gap one systematic fragility is the most effective states of Brazilian for instead of international affairs. But the gap one systematic fragility is the most effective states of Brazilian for instead of international fragilities were just one systematic fragility is the most effective states of Brazilian for instead of international affairs. But the gap
Like, I actually might quit this video prematurely because this is so.
between the proactive AU committee and reluctant states of Brazilian for instead of international affairs. But the gap between the proactive AU committee and reluctant member states is huge. This
But the gap between the proactive unity committee, I think, and is huge.
international affairs. But the gap between the proactive AU committee and reluctant member states is huge. This inconsistency how the EU applies its rules and frameworks, which weakens the body. Cut the card there, firmly stalls
I'm gonna tough through it. Um, I'll see you on the other side. I'll pause the recording here. I'm back for just one more. I feel like I'm being mean. I I want to be clear here. The team that I'm watching was picked randomly, and I know for a fact they are not any worse than the average spreading that I've seen in PS. Um, in fact, this seems comparatively somewhat clear, and also comparatively somewhat slower than a lot of the spreading that I've heard. But my question is sort of a question of like debate and judge philosophy. To what extent does misspeaking cause you to lose an argument? Because like my intuition says it shouldn't at all. Like if I understand what you meant, then like that's good enough, right? Debate is a communication activity. But at the same time, like we also say, you're not allowed to clip. But some clipping might be unintentional, but who knows if it's intentional? Like, what if you accidentally skip every like 50th word in your card? Is that clipping? And is that allowed? Is that not allowed? And like, to what extent does misspeaking over and over again cause you to shape the argument in a different way? Also, like, to what extent does misspeaking influence the argument if it's like you're misspeaking on the most important word of the argument, or if you're misspeaking on one out of like five words that make up the argument? Like, then it's like 20% of the words are literally incorrect. Um, because I'm asking this in reference to this line.
this clash was the reason drop them, don't let them go for it. There are only three links are legitimacy, tension, and conflict, and FDI equality at the top. But you can at the top of their uniqueness, you can turn because admittance to the UN means admittance to the UN. That's
He says at the top of their uniqueness, turn it because admitted to the UN means admitted to the UN, which probably is true. That seems like a tautology. Obviously, what he means is admitted to the AU means admitted to the UN. That's probably what it says in the doc. Um, but like, to technically, you should only evaluate the words that are spoken, right? And like this response doesn't make sense as spoken. Does that like to what extent is this just flowing from the doc then? And then like if you can get away with this, like is it a slippery slope? Like look, maybe the argument I'm making is actually stupid. Like it might genuinely be. Like obviously he misspoke. Obviously you can tell what he means. Which might be true in this circumstance. But like Like, what about in other ones? Like, can you push it a little bit? Like, it seems to me that this misspeaking happens quite frequently. Like, it's already happened like probably 3 or 4 times in this speech. And it happens in such a way to like change the meaning of the argument. And maybe you don't always know that it's misspeaking unless you look at the doc. Like, does that matter? Like, do we care? Like, I don't know. It just feels weird that you can make an entirely different speech, but then people look at the doc and they're like, oh, I understand what you mean. Like, we're just substituting the doc for the speech at this point. That seems worrying to me. Maybe I am tripping, but I'm gonna get back to it. Okay, I finished flowing, or not really flowing. I finished taking notes word for word on the rest of the speech. And it got clearer over time, which is a great thing. I also think, like, looking at the speech like this, it's a pretty good speech. There's a lot packed into it. There are a lot of responses. Specifically, there's like stuff at the top, and then there's 7 responses or 9 responses on contention one, and another like 5 on contention 2, plus some independent stuff on like the link level. It ran out of time a little bit at the end, but like there's a lot of ink here for a first rebuttal. It'll be annoying at the very least for the second rebuttal to get through all of it and try to frontline. Certainly, they won't be able to frontline all of it unless they are incredibly efficient, and so this will probably at least force them to pick something. And a lot of the responses seem like genuinely pretty good. That said, I think we can, I mean, I think we can both make it better and make it slower in a lot of different ways. For example, this is just a tangent, but one thing that a lot of teams seem to be doing recently is like giving this kind of response. I think he makes this response twice. Question the time frame. If the implication of your response is that I should question their time frame, it usually doesn't help you. But this is also because I don't really think time frame is real weighing. Maybe it's a tiebreaker at like the very end of the round if there's absolutely nothing else that you can use. But I don't know that this even needs to be set up that early either. Like it seems like A, it's fairly weak weighing. B, it is weak enough that if you need it absolutely, you will know for sure if it's useful at the end of the round. And it's a kind of response that can be introduced later. So it might not be as useful to put into the rebuttal where you have time to, you have space to deliver other new responses that you can't deliver later in the round. Whereas you could just call this time frame weighing, slap it on later, especially since it seems inherent to the argument. And I think that would be maybe a better application of this. But who am I? Who am I to say? Instead, I want to address the real purpose of this video, which is that I think we can take all of this, which is, by the way, 1,077 words right now. Word count 1,077. And that I might have missed some words. I might have put too many words in some of these. I certainly didn't flow it perfectly. Even though I promise I tried my best. Uh, I think we can get this down to a good 800 at the very highest, in my opinion, without cutting any responses. So let's get to work. I'll show you my process for like the first part, and then I'll probably just like do some off-screen grinding all the way to the end, and then deliver the final product. So let's see. I don't really know what he's saying here, but they say something, democracy is low right now, but that doesn't mean authoritarianism isn't high right now. But they conceded evidence that authoritarianism right now is increasing. I'm not really sure what this is like on or like what the signposting is with this, but I would probably just say, remember, maybe not even that word, like just they conceded evidence that authoritarianism is increasing despite democracy, despite, I don't know, democracy being low. It seems like maybe this was misspeaking, but I'm not 100% sure. So we'll leave it as is. This is enough to say this. Like, we don't really need anything else. We could even cut this down further, but it might get ridiculous. But I mean, I don't know, no more ridiculous than some of the wording of this. Like, we could even say something like, they conceded authoritarianism is increasing, uh, even if democracy is low. Okay. Um, they say US influence is permanently on the decline, but no. We're going to do some negative signposting here, some signposting by negation, where we say US influence is not on the decline. Or US, we'll just say US decline, not permanent. And I like to say is. Some people don't, some people will ignore grammar, but I think we'll keep this both slow and grammatical for you. US decline is not permanent. I'm kind of confused about this response. Like, I don't really know why the warrants imply the conclusion, but I'm gonna include it anyway. Trump wants uh influence in the region um to hedge against rivals and acquire geopolitical assets. I still don't, I'm not convinced this is a coherent, like combination of words. So I'm just going to leave it as this because this seems to be the only functional part of the argument. So now we've got, they conceded authoritarianism increasing, even if democracy low, US decline not permanent. Trump wants, or we'll say not inevitable. I think inevitable is a better word. It sounds nice. US decline is not inevitable. Trump wants influence in the region to hedge against rivals and acquire geopolitical assets. Um, I'm kind of confused about this affirming thing now because I don't know how this sentence functions in the round. Like, okay, it's sort of a fact that exists on both sides. So US is gonna like I don't know why what this does, but okay, we'll leave it there for now. If I did know what it did, I probably would add my own implication. But since I don't know what it does, we're just gonna leave it because I don't want to take out anything that might be content. Now on cohesion. On cohesion. And now we're gonna put all of these responses. So here we come to a crossroads because I think a lot of people watching this video will get mad at me if I don't include the cut cards. But I don't have the cut cards. I don't even think I properly like I don't know which words are in the cut card and which aren't. So I'm gonna pause and go try to find the speech doc real quick. Okay, I found the speech doc for the rebuttal. I guess these are all of the cards. This will help me understand what I missed. Like, for example, I did get the word assembly. I don't know that I really heard has refused to transfer meaning or has refused to transfer. That part was difficult for me. Maybe if I go back and watch it after reading this, I'll like understand it. But my position is still that like I think that's asking a bit much for judges. Um, but let's use this. So I know that some people will get mad at me if I don't read cut cards. I think I'll make a version after that is entirely paraphrased. I personally think paraphrase is good. I think paraphrasing is awesome and very easy to theoretically defend, to be honest, despite what a lot of people seem to believe. Like, I don't know that anyone has really sat down and, like, I don't know, like, tried that hard. And the people who have, like, seem to agree with me. So I think that people should paraphrase more. And I think that one of the biggest benefits of paraphrasing is that it allows you to pump the brakes a little bit on spreading, which I think is a good thing. And so I'll do a version later with paraphrasing. But for now, because I promised I would include all of the content, I will include the cut cards. I'm not, however, going to include them as cut. I'll include the content of the card, but I'm going to recut it a little bit. Over the last 3 years, didn't he say four? That's interesting. Um, over the last 3 years, 93%. Well, I mean, if we're saying AU elsewhere, we might as well be consistent. So let's take that out, and then we'll take that out as well. Again, I don't have verbatim, or else I would be doing this in verbatim. Decisions have not been implemented. Um, we can just say assembly. I mean, if we're really doing word salad at this point, why not, right? The rest of the speech is like this. So assembly refused transfer to transfer powers um, to the AU, to the AU. Um, the commission, yeah, let's just do the AU is probably even quicker in terms of syllables than the commission. The AU cannot compel states to comply. And I think with AU rules is sort of implied. Um, most states refuse. Yeah. And then that's the same thing. Everything else is implied by those words alone. And we're good. We've cut it down. So let's see. What was the tag at the top? No, I think I wrote this wrong. It's not at the top of, it's like they said, I think, even if it's at the top of the agenda. I don't know why we're doing this, by the way. Like, even if at is it's really that, and if you're not going to use it's, then like, why? Like then you might as well send it fully, right? Like even if top of agenda, or like even if top agenda. Like I feel like if you're gonna send it, send it. But if you're not, like it doesn't seem to be the biggest deal here. Make them read evidence, something will happen. I don't even think you should read it this way, to be honest. Like then I guess they'll read evidence, and you're sort of implying that it's okay for them to do that when I personally think it's not. Um, so. I think instead I'm gonna retag this both for efficiency and I think clarity. So let me think of a good way. Okay, we just fast forwarded a little bit. I did some grinding and I rewrote the speech in my own words. I made sure I was going to paraphrase them. I'm not going to anymore. I don't think I need to. But I do think it would be even better to do this with paraphrasing. But that means all of the cards in here are cut cards. I didn't like take the time. I did it for this one, for example. But for all of the other ones, I didn't actually take the time to go through and like re-highlight them because I'm not actually giving this speech. But if you want, like you can compare the words that I read to the words in the card. I'll give you one example. Let's just pick a random one. Robinson. So every word here is from Robinson. So let's look at where's Robinson. There's Robinson. So this is what they say. Deep political divides have prevented the formation of a unified army. So for example, here I say political divides prevented a unified army. It's the same thing. I just don't use some of the qualifier words. But it has the same exact meanings. I don't really think it changes very much if they're political divides or deep political divides. And then I sort of took like this part out because I don't think it really matters because this is the actual warrant that it's 80% political and civilian led. So I've kept that in. Counterinsurgents competing. This is also just sort of like maybe this is an additional warrant. I don't think it'll ever matter in any round. So I'm just keeping this warrant in. I also don't really think this is a warrant. I don't know what that means. But this certainly is, right? Like it's political and civilian led, and that's how it gets to the conclusion in the first place. That even if the other technical problems were solved, politics breaks state armed forces. So I kept that part in as well. And that's how I cut the card. I don't think anything really meaningfully goes away. If you disagree, then like, I don't know, put a few more words back in. I don't really think it changes very much. It certainly should not account for the entire difference in this speech, which I will show you now. And I've really tried my absolute hardest to interpret these responses. Some of them are quite confusing to me. Like for example, where is it? There's one that I just like this one, for example. Like I don't really know what this means. Um, I tried my best to interpret it correctly, but in these cases, I've like left in all of the parts that I didn't understand just in case they are content, just in case they have a function that I just is like so mysterious that it's just beyond me. And so I've really done, I think, a very careful job of making sure I haven't taken out any important content that would change the effect that this speech has on the round. If you disagree with me, then I would love for you to point out like which parts are different. And then we can workshop it more and like find a middle ground, I guess. But this is my best attempt at sort of slowing things down without taking any arguments out. So the new word count of this is 548. I think this is actually slightly artificially deflated because I used a number list instead of writing out the words. Like I wrote out like fifth, sixth, so that's like extra words technically. But it shouldn't account for the massive like almost 50% decline in words here. And I will just to prove that I will read this speech as if I'm giving a rebuttal, and we'll see. Like I don't even know if it will take me 4 minutes going slowly, but I will like try to go quite slowly so that it does, and then you can see the difference. All right, is everyone ready? They conceded authoritarianism is increasing even if democracy is low. US decline is not inevitable. Trump wants influence in the region to hedge against rivals and acquire geopolitical assets. On cohesion, one, Stager 24 finds that over the last 3 years, 93% of AU decisions have not been implemented. Assembly refused to transfer powers to the AU. The Commission cannot compel states to comply. Most states just refuse. Two, turn. GLO 22, AU decline of authority could be reversed if fragilities were addressed. One is that most states oppose interference. The gap between proactive commission and reluctant states weakens the body. The proxy war between Egypt and Ethiopia is a consequence of the failure to address Somaliland's status. We address it, we solve. Three, their uniqueness is that things might be better in the far future, which one is not guaranteed and two means it's bad now. Four, the splintering evidence is miscut. It says China and the US create problems, not the AU. Five, normal means of AU decisions guarantee two-thirds majority, which preserves cohesion. Six, empirics disprove. For example, the AU's intervention in Ethiopia's conflict violated Article 4 but preserved cohesion. Seven, their evidence says amendments are debated, not that amendment violations cause debates. Besides, there's no time frame. Eight, time frame on global spillover takes forever. Nine, empirics disprove their Russia-specific impact, since Ukraine obviously should have triggered it. On instability, no hidden links. They should have clarified them in cross, but they dodged the question, which decks education and depth of clash. This is a voter. That leaves them with three: legitimacy, tension, and FDI. On uniqueness, one, turn. AF ensures UN admission. For example, Emma Hosian 18 says 4 days after independence, Eritrea was admitted to the UN established representation of the AU. This means the UN can come in after and stabilize the region. Two, turn. They never identify the root cause of instability. We solve it. Elaili 24, the question of Somaliland's sovereignty is becoming a cause of instability. Without recognition, Somaliland struggles to resolve disputes. The port deal would not have provoked Somalia if Somaliland's sovereignty was recognized. Three, their uniqueness evidence is specific to Somaliland. That's only about one conflict, but there are many other instabilities in the region. Four, their Kurtz evidence is terminal on their own case. It says even when relations were terrible last month, we were nowhere near escalation, so there's empirically no impact. Five, their stability evidence looks at one election, but A, it was postponed, and B, the whole government is corrupt. It's not stabilizing. Next, their scenarios all depend on Somalia intervention. One, Robinson 24 postdates all of it and says political divides prevented a unified army. It is 80% political and civilian-led. Even if other technical problems were solved, politics breaks state armed forces. So they don't have any political backing or a competent army to intervene. Skip the next card. Two, escalation is happening now. Mustakbal 12:9 says heavy battle between Somaliland forces and fighters. Renewed conflicts indicate tensions continue to escalate. On AU recession, the evidence is one, not specific to Somaliland, and two, contingent on civil war. On China, I won't read the card, but China has geopolitical assets like the BRI in the region, so they wouldn't want to risk destroying them with war. On investment, one, empirics disprove. Plenty of other countries have had FDI investment without great power war. At the very least, the time frame is awful. Two, the inequality link is one unwarranted card. So don't evaluate it. I don't know what to do with the rest of my 20 seconds. I certainly was not spreading, and I think I went fairly slow, even like slower than talking pace. And it's the same arguments. Like it's exactly the same stuff. I read the same cards. It's still going. I read the same cards. I read the same implications of the cards, the same warrants. Um, I maybe even added some stuff that wasn't there originally. I was at least tempted to add some things. I don't know if I actually did, but like there is so much more you can be doing. So I guess this proves two things. One is the less important one, but maybe one that you will be happy hearing, which is that it is very easy to read more arguments in a 4 minute speech than you currently are. The second one is the one that I think is very, very much more important, which is that the best way to read more arguments in a 4 minute speech is not by spreading. You can see in the speech that he stumbles over his words a few times. This actually decreases your word efficiency. But the single most important thing you can do to become more efficient in terms of like content density, not word density, is to improve your word economy. Just like one, like this is the first draft of my edit. I could keep going and making this even more efficient. But just the first draft cut down the words by like a good 50%. Um, without cutting any content. That allows you to add like double the arguments if you're going to go the same speed, but it also allows you to not go the same speed. And actually, my argument is that going the same speed is really bad. One, I think a lot of these responses literally become incoherent because of the speed. Two, I don't think it's very fun to debate that way, personally. Three, I think that it leads to a lot of weird decisions and sort of annoying debates where you kind of get skill checked on just not being able to like take notes very quickly. And like, I feel like that's not really all of what debate should be about. And the bigger problem is like the docs get sent to the judges. And so then, like, I don't know, 15 minutes after the debate, the judge goes back and looks through the evidence, and then they find what the argument actually meant. Whereas, as the debaters, it's actually quite difficult, I think, to understand some of these arguments when they're just not explained at all, and you're only reading from the doc. Because like, I don't know. Again, I don't think I'm unique here when I say that this was difficult for me to understand, not just on the first go, but on like the fifth go. I still had some questions about what some of the words that he was saying were. And so if you're a debater in this round, I have to believe that you have a similar level of understanding to me unless I'm just completely different and like weaker at understanding spreading. But if you do have anywhere near a similar level of auditory processing of this speech as I do, then it's almost like it's almost impossible to catch everything by listening. And so it requires you to flow from the dock. It would require me to flow from the dock as a judge, which invites so many terrible things. Like it means that you can say whatever you want. Like obviously clipping is an example, but this goes, I think, way further beyond clipping into more pernicious territories that are way harder to catch. Like half of the words that are said here are like wrong. Like he reads some of the cards wrong. I went and checked the speech and I checked the actual words that are highlighted in the card. Technically, this is clipping, but it's not really clipping. Like he's not skipping any of the words. He's just like accidentally mispronouncing some of them or like saying the wrong word or like flipping the order of some of the sentences. Which makes sense if you're trying to go that fast and you haven't practiced it a lot. Like I feel like I don't know why we're doing this. Like it doesn't seem like there is enough of a competitive justification to use this strategy to justify all of the harms. And there are a lot of harms. And the harms are not just education and fairness. Like who cares? The harms are to the like, I don't know, the heart and soul of the activity. Um, and also like there are real harms to the community, like the broader community, as in it's harder for me to convince like schools that they should invest in a debate program. It's harder to convince teachers to go and judge. It's harder to convince my mom to go and judge. I probably will never tell my mom to judge any debate competition again if this is what it's going to be like. And that I think really saps at the energy that we want in debate. Um, you don't have to do it. You can win against these teams without doing it. Just because they're going fast doesn't mean you have to. And I think it's actually like competitively worse even when a judge doesn't understand some of the things you're saying. Um, I mean, I don't think a lot of people will follow my advice, but I hope that if even just a few people do, then I have made a difference. So, yeah, go spread the good word and whatnot. I hope that you got something out of this, and I hope that you like, even if you do watch this and you're like, nah, I'm gonna keep spreading. Obviously, everyone's spreading. I hope that at the very least you introspect a little bit and you ask yourself why, and you ask yourself, how can I do this in a way that minimizes some of the harms? Because even if you think that the benefits of spreading outweigh the harms, like I don't think it's possible to deny that there are any harms at all. And so you should at the very least think about how you can maximize the benefits and minimize the harms. More so the second thing, more so minimize the harms, right? And if you do that, then I think there is some more hope for the activity. Yeah, thanks for listening to my soapbox, and I hope you have a good day.